All right, everybody, hello. This is lesson 6.3, using elimination or elimination using addition subtraction. I kind of like to think this is more of using addition, okay, or putting two numbers together, one positive and one negative. And we'll talk about that as we go through. This is the essential question: how can you use vertical math to find the variables? And we're going to be doing that this week, okay, with this particular lesson. So we're going to talk a lot about elimination. First, you write the system so that like terms are aligned, okay? So as you go through, you'll realize, I want the x's together, I want the y's together, and then it would equal something and that would be together. That way you can do vertical math. Then you add or subtract, eliminating one of the variables, okay? And then you substitute the value in step 2 and the other one like we kind of did with substitution, and you go from there. All right, so here's the setup. One thing I want to make sure as you look here is kind of isolate things with your eyeballs, okay? Vertical math. Isolate things. And what I mean by that is if I cover up the rest of this right here, 3 minus 3, or 3 and a negative 3 put together, ladies and gentlemen, would be 0. Okay, so we have 0 here. And now I'm not going to write 0 the entire time. What this is just kind of a beginning aspect of it, so I'll write it now. Now you're going to understand you're going to add or put these numbers together, a 4 and a negative 6. And when you put a negative 6 and a 4 together, you'd end up with negative 2y. Hopefully you guys understand that. Equals, adding these together, that would be 30, okay? 12 plus 18. Now you do your last setup here. This is going to be minus 2, or divide by negative 2, so y equals negative 15. Hey, we got one. Now what you do, ladies and gentlemen, is you do have to plug this value into one of the original equations. Which one? It's up to you, but you do have to pick one. So the elimination by addition is a little harder when it comes to some things aren't simplified as easy. So I'm going to try to stay away from the negative variable, so I'll throw it in right here into this one. So if y equals negative 15, okay, one big aspect is understanding it'd be 3x minus, and then it's 6 times negative 15, okay, and that equals 18. Now, I don't know off the top of my head what that is. Actually, that'd be 30, 60, that'd be 90. So negative 6 times negative 15 would be 3x plus 90 equals 18. And then you would subtract 90 from both sides, and you would end up, ladies and gentlemen, with 3x equals, and that would be 72. Make sure you do my math right. 2 carry the 7, yep. All right, and then if you divide by 3, it'd be, let me have my calculator here, 72 divided by 3 comes out to be x equals negative 24. Okay, so on this first example here, you got y equals negative 15, x equals negative 24. Bam. Big numbers, but it's legit if you guys were to go in and check it out. Now this one here, this one is not lined up. Okay, so what you got to do is rewrite it real quick. So I'm going to leave the bottom one alone and rewrite the top one. So when I rewrite the top one real quick, I'm going to throw it down here as negative 4y, because that's what that is. So let me scratch this off. And then it's a plus 3x equals 14. Now I can scratch off the top because I'm rewriting it. Because 4 minus 4 is 0. And this x plus 3x is 4 x's, because how many x's are there? There are 4. And then this answer would come out to be 14 minus 6 is, in fact, 8. And divided by 4, x equals 2. All right, so there's my x value. Now, when I look at my original equations here, let me erase this back out. I look at it and I think, which one's the easiest one to solve? Okay. As a matter of fact, the easiest one to solve would be probably the one with just a single x sitting in it. So I will stick this into there. So like I said, this one is going to be a little bit more challenging for some of you, but it shouldn't be that difficult. So instead of putting in x, I put in a 2. So hopefully you guys can see that. And then you would subtract 2 from both sides. All right, this is negative 8, 4y equals, divide by 4, and you have y equals negative 2. So there are my two values. Your turn. All right, same thing, ladies and gentlemen, vertical math here. So these subtracted out, this would be 0. All right, this would be 3 minus 5. 3 and a negative 5 put together is going to be negative 2y equals and then negative 5 minus 3 is 2. Divide by negative 2, y equals negative 1. All right, now you plug in a value, so it doesn't matter which one. No, once again though, I'm going to try to stay away from this setup right here because I don't want my x, my 4 here, to be negative. So I'll go 4x minus 5 times negative 1 equals 5, okay? And you change the colors. So this is going to be changing because negative times a negative is positive. And subtract 5 from both sides. And ladies and gentlemen, you get 4x equals 0, which, if I were to divide both sides by it, it would end up being 0 anyways, because anything divided by 0 is 0. Once I hit 0, I'm done. I ain't got to change anything else. There are my 2 points. On this one here, you're going to have to rewrite it again. So this is going to be 4y right here. And this is going to be 3x right there equals 22. So scratch that off. And you can see what you eliminate here. So this is going to be 6x equals, that's 0. That will be 36. Divide that. X is 6. Most of you guys should know 36 divided by 6 is that. Then you plug it in once again. I'm going to try to avoid the negative variables. So this time I'm going in there because I know when I add it to both sides. So I'm just thinking like 2 steps ahead. Doesn't matter which one I choose. No, it doesn't. So this would be 3 times x. Oh, you know what? So because of that, let me change that. Let me put it into the bottom one because I'm replacing the x value. So if I'm replacing x, I don't want that to be negative. So that's going to be 3 times 6 plus 4y equals 22. So that would be what? 18. Right. Then you would subtract by 18. And then it'd be 4y equals 4. Divide that by 4. And ladies and gentlemen, you get y equals 1. So there are my 2 values right there. I changed it up at the last moment just because I wanted to make sure you guys understood. I didn't have to, if I divided by negative 4, it's fine. It doesn't flip a sign or anything, but I just don't like dividing by a negative number because most of you forget. So there's your answer right there. You'll get the same answer if you go the other way, so it doesn't really matter. All right, solve elimination. Sometimes you have to change the equation by multiplying a negative through it in order to change. So what we're going to do now is when I say multiply negative, I mean we're going to multiply it in to change one of the variables. Because if you look here, this is a negative, so these ones don't matter, but it's negative 4, negative 4. So we need to change the variable. So how we're going to do this is I want you guys to think of it as, I want you to change everything at front. So we're going to multiply this bottom one here by a negative. Okay, and when we do that, it changes the signs. So it's going to be, I'm going to rewrite the top. So it's 8x minus 4y equals negative 28. That doesn't change. But what changes is the bottom. So now it's going to be x into here. So it's negative 2x. Negative and a negative is now a positive 4y equals negative and a negative, a positive 16. So you see how this bottom one we changed. And then when you change it, you simply just do your math after that. So this would be 6x. These cancel out, okay, equals, and then that would be negative 12. Divide by 6, x equals negative 2. Simple as that, okay? Switch the sign over first, do the math. Now the same thing applies though, is you do have to plug it back in. I'll plug it in this one because it's a smaller setup. This is 8. I don't want to get too crazy with it. So once you set it up into there, I can put it in the original here. Not this original, but the original up here, okay? If it's too confusing, which some of you it might be, what I'll do is I'll just stick it in the top one just for poops and giggles, okay? Making sure we don't get anything confused. So I'll stick it in the top one. So it is 8 times negative 2 minus 4y equals negative 28, okay? So there's my setup. So this is going to be negative 16 minus 4y. You would add 16 to both sides. And when you do that, ladies and gentlemen, these cancel out. You get negative 4y equals, that would be negative 12. Divide by negative 4. And y equals a positive 3. Nice. bottom one here. This one over here, do the same thing. So we're going to take and let's multiply. Does it matter which one we do? No. Let's convert this top one. Let's multiply this top one by the negative. Okay, so if I do that, then I'm going to rewrite it just underneath. So this is going to be 2x, right? Because negative and negative. Negative and negative again is positive 7y equals negative 5. Okay, then I would just simply cross this off so you kind of know where you're at. Now you combine. So you do your vertical math. Negative 2 and 2 is 0. 9 and 7 is 16y equals negative 16. See, sometimes when you think about it over term, is this hard to do? No, it's not. I try to, and this is the first time I'm doing this one, I try to pick something that looks easier. Either small numbers, getting rid of some negatives. It's up to you. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just make sure you guys get the right answer as you're going through the process. Now I'll stick this one into there. And so that way you have negative 2x, and it's going to be plus 9 times negative 1 equals negative 11. So you got to distribute that. So it's negative 2x minus 9 equals negative 11. Then you would basically add 9 to both sides. All right, and it's negative 2x equals negative 2. Divide by negative 2. And you get x equals 1. If you have any questions about this, pause the video, back it up, try it again. Your turn. All right, on this one, pick the ones that look similar, okay? Same thing, doesn't matter which one you pick. So I'm gonna multiply this bottom one here by a negative. This one over here, let's get rid of this negative 9. So let's multiply the bottom one by a negative. It just happens to be, does it matter? Nope, doesn't. All right, so change this up. This would be 5x plus 3y equals 8. So I basically changed all that up. And I'll do the vertical math and I'll skip that column. And so this will be 6x minus 9y equals 9. So that way I switched these symbols to positives, okay? So on here, these cancel out. So that cancels out. Let me change this to black. It cancels out. It'd be 3 minus 2, which would be just y, equals 8 minus 2, 6. Bam. Can't get any easier than that, can it? Now what I want to do is I technically would want to stick it back up in here, so I need to see this. So it's negative 5x minus 2 times 6 equals negative 2. All right, then you have negative 5x minus 12 equals negative 2. Add 12 to both sides. And ladies and gentlemen, you get negative 5x equals 10. X equals negative 2. So there's your y, there's your x. Same over here. Okay, I won't cross it off this time. Negative 8 plus 6, so that would be negative 2x equals, those cancel out, 9 and that would be 12. Divide by negative 2, you'd end up with x equals negative 6. Hopefully you guys can see that simple setup. Then the last piece would be to take this bad boy here and plug it into the top equation. And so you would get negative 8 times negative 6 plus 9y equals 3. All right, this would be 48. Negative and negative is positive. Subtract 48 from both sides. So that, because you got to move it, we want to isolate the y. And you'd end up with 9y equals negative 45. And if you guys know, you divide by 9, y equals negative 5. So there's your answers. So sometimes you have to multiply by a negative just to switch the signs up. Okay, make sure you guys can do this setup. It's not a difficult process, but you got to make sure you do. All right, now this one here, same thing, okay, but we're going to rearrange the equation. So we've already done a couple rearrangements, but this one here, it gets a little crazier, okay? So this one's not too bad, but I want to get all the x's and the y's on the same side. So I threw these in for you guys to make sure you can know how to do the order of operations correctly, because some of you are screwing this up. When I say that, I mean you're messing these up by basically, I want to make sure you guys do the ax plus by equals c, the standard form. Some of you just move things from one side to the other, and you're not actually adding or subtracting, and so you're getting it wrong. All right, so if I want to change this one to ax plus by equals c, I already have the y over here, but I've got to move this 18 over to here. All right, and then I've got to move this 2x. So let's move the 18 first. So if I do that, it's going to be 10y equals, and then this is negative 2x minus 18. This is just the top equation. We're going to add 2x to both sides. Can't combine anything together. So it ends up being 2x plus 10y equals negative 18. All right, there's equation 1. Now let's focus on equation 2. Now I'm going to do this and just rewrite it simply down here, okay? So this is going to be 3x plus 10y, because we didn't have to change much, equals negative 17. Now, what I am going to do, though, is now we're going to multiply by a negative, right? So I'm going to take this bottom one and multiply it by a negative, just because I can. Or actually, looking at it, I'm going to change the top one to a negative. So I'm going to change it because if I did this, this would be a negative x. So I'm going to change that to a negative. And then I'm going to, let me get my eraser. If I multiply a negative across the board, this turns into a negative as well. And then this turns into a positive. All right, hopefully you guys see that. Change it up. So this is going to be x equals 1. Simple as that. All right, now you plug your equation in. It doesn't matter which one. Let's plug it into, you can plug it into one of the rewritten ones if you want, either one of these two, because you didn't really change the features much. So we'll plug it into the bottom one just for poops and giggles. As you do it, it'd be 3 plus 10y equals negative 17. Subtract 3 from both sides. You would get 10y equals negative 20. And then you guys should see that y equals negative 2. The other one over there, same setup. We got the x and the y already, but now we need to rearrange it. So we're going to bring this over to here. So it's going to be, whoops, on this equation right here, we're going to rearrange it, and then I'm going to scratch it off. So bar my ugliness for a second. So this is going to be plus 4y, and the pen went a little crazy. And so let me scratch this off, and then we'll leave the 26, right? So if I were to rewrite this, it'd be negative x minus 4y equals negative 11. And then you have negative 2x plus 4y equals 26. Cool thing is when you rewrote it, what happens? You don't have to do any other special math. So this is negative and negative is negative 3x. These cancel out. Equals, that would be a 15. Divide by negative 3. X is negative 5. Okay, now you plug it into the original. We'll put it in that one right there. It makes it a little easier. So remember when I do this though, there's a little bit of a trick on this one. It's going to be negative x, so it's negative 5 minus 4y equals 11. Negative 11. So negative and a negative makes this positive. So please make sure you don't mess that sign up. Then, ladies and gentlemen, you would subtract 5. And when you do that, you get negative 4y equals negative 16. If you divide, ladies and gentlemen, you get y equals 4. Hopefully you guys understand that setup and process, okay? If not, make sure you come see me and we'll work on this guided practice real quick. Go. All right, hopefully you guys rearrange these. So we're gonna move this 4x over to here. So this is gonna be negative 4x plus 6y. I'm just rewriting the top equation, and then I'm gonna add 4x to both sides. So this would be plus 4x plus y equals 11. All right, this when you move it, it cancels out. So 7y equals 21. So y equals 3. All right, now when you do your setup, you plug it back into the equation. I'm gonna go, which one should I do? We'll do this one. What the heck, right? Since it's singular, so I know it's gonna be 3, whoops, not b. So I know it's gonna be 3 equals 11 minus 4x. Then you would subtract 11 from both sides. End up with negative 8 equals negative 4x. You divide by negative 4, you get x equals 2. All right, the other one over here, let's put, so this one here is very interesting. We might go backwards on this one just to do it. When I say that is, they've got an x and y already on the same side, so let's subtract this 2x over to here. So when we do that, the top equation, I'm going to rewrite it right below it. Negative 20 equals negative 2x, and then this is going to be plus 2y. Now I said to rewrite it as ax plus by equals c. Technically I did, but the ax and the by are on the wrong side, but that's okay. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do our math. So this is negative 25 equals these. Do they cancel out? No, they do not. So I've got to change it up. So what I said was wrong. All right, so now I forgot I was going to cancel these out, but they don't cancel. I have to cancel this out. So let's multiply the bottom by a negative, okay? All right, so if I multiply the bottom by a negative, this goes positive, that goes positive, and then this number here goes negative. So let me erase this little one right here, and that would be negative. All right, now let's do our math. So this is going to be 15. Negative 5 plus 20 is 15. X would be 3 x's. And now you divide by 3, and x equals 5. Okay, so the y's canceled out. Now we'll plug in this value up into here, because that's a singular x. It seems to be a little simpler. So it's negative 5 equals 5 plus 2y. You would subtract 5 from both sides. So when you end up with that, you get negative 10 and 2y. So y equals negative 5. Please make sure, if you guys, when we're going through this in class, we went kind of fast. I'm going through it fast now. Back it up, figure out what I did if you're struggling, and understand kind of how we're rewriting things, okay? Last but certainly not least, and I'm pretty sure that's the last slide, and it is we're talking about whether or not something has an infinite amount of solutions or no solutions at all. Now, we talked a little bit about this before, okay? So on this example here, if I were to do the math, this would be adding these together. Okay, this would be 3 and 3 would be 0. This would be 12y equals what though? This equals 18 minus 18, which is 0. So we know y equals 0. So if y equals 0, now we can plug that into this equation here. Okay, so if y equals 0 on this, then what you do is you try to figure out exactly your setup. And when you do the y equals 0 aspect of it, then you know that, so we'll use 3x, okay? So if it's 3x plus 6y equals negative 18, if I plug a 0 in there, I get 3x equals negative 18. Okay, so my x value is actually going to end up being negative 6, okay? I will double check the math on that, because I thought this was supposed to be no solution, because when you add these together, you get 0, but I'm getting an x out the coordinates. So let me look here. Because if I plug a negative 6 into there and a 0 into there, that is 18. If I plug a negative 6 into here and a 0 into there, that is in fact negative 18. So the good news is that they are the same. One aspect of is that you guys understand that if I were to plot these out, there would probably be an intersection. I'm not quite sure. This one here though, I know there definitely is no solution, because if you rearrange this equation, so if I put, let me back this up. If I put on here negative 6y, and then I did this as negative 6, because that's what that is, equals 12. And then I scratch this off and I write it. This would be 0. This would be 0 equals what? Negative, or not negative, it equals 6. Is 0 equals 6? The answer is no. So if you were to graph this on a solution set, ladies and gentlemen, this would be no solution. What's interesting to me is if I were to graph these, I thought this one, unless I rewrote it, I could have wrote it wrong, was supposed to be infinite number of solutions, but I'll figure that out and we'll talk about it in class. It's just the kind of the same principles as substitution, okay? If you get two numbers that equal each other, that's infinite number of solutions. If I get something that 0 equals 6, then that is no solution at all. So please make sure you guys remember that aspect of it when you're taking the test. If you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, good luck as you continue on with this homework and solving systems of equations.